The world had less than 20 years to recover from the First World War before the Spanish Civil War reignited a conflict that would morph into World War II. That's not a lot of time in terms of this course, but it represents a great deal of very important art. I was impressed at how Michael Wood's Art of the Western World series managed to pack a huge amount of information and a surprising number of images into just a half-an-hour video. So I'm going to let him do much of my work for me. Fasten your seatbelts. Let me start with one impulse that emerged from World War I and perhaps even more from the Russian Revolution that the war helped ignite. And that is a drive to create a utopia, a new, better world from the ruins of the old. Many Russian artists embraced avant-garde art for the same reason that Italian painters launched Futurism. They despised their country's conservative past and wanted to see their society and its art modernized and transformed. Suprematism was a Russian avant-garde movement that celebrated the supremacy of pure feelings, in other words, abstraction as opposed to representational art. Its most famous proponent was Kazimir Malevich. It's hard to see, but white on white is actually a white square tilted at an angle superimposed on another white square. You may recall a discussion about this way back in the beginning of the course, an Khan Academy podcast that compared it with a painting from Monet. You can still find that on Moodle. Suprematist artists welcomed the revolution. These two pro-Soviet propaganda posters both show the influence of suprematism, and the one on the left in particular of Malevich. But once the Russian Civil War was over, communist leaders called for art that would more clearly serve the revolution. So here's a video clip describing the Soviet artists' response, the rise of constructivism. You should know, by the way, that almost every AP test I've seen has at least one multiple choice question about Russian constructivism. So here are two constructivist works. Sorry, I'm having trouble with that one, including the model for the tower you just saw, and which, of course, was never built. But eventually, the communist leadership soured even on constructivist art. Stalin, like Hitler, had no patience for abstraction. In 1932, he decreed that socialist realism, that is, naturalist art that celebrated the worker, you see an example here, was the only acceptable art form. Meanwhile, German artists were protesting not only the horrors of war, you saw that Otto Dix painting in the beginning, but also the incompetence of Germany's post-war government and also its corruption. Here is a very short clip about George Grosz. And here's another painting by Grosz on a similar theme. I am not going to try to butcher the German, but this movement criticizing the Weimar Republic, calling for a new, better order, often a communist order, was known as New Objectivity. If you see that German word, I trust you'll recognize it. This is another brutal painting capturing the horrors of war and of state-sponsored violence. Beckmann was another important member of this school. But away from the maelstrom of revolutionary Russia and post-war, actually initially also revolutionary Germany, utopian visions took on a more abstract cast. Two examples of this are the organic sculpture of Brancusi and the geometric paintings of Mondrian. Both artists were looking for a more rational, more humane new order, and they saw art as part of that. You need to know this sculpture, by the way. It was a very important move toward abstract sculpture. You notice the idea of a bird flying has been reduced to this very simple, sleek, I think beautiful image. So here's another clip from the video. These likewise are examples of organic sculpture. Note that both Moore and the Hepworth sculptures you just saw not only celebrate the shapes of nature, they also draw attention to holes or voids or negative space in nature. Moore's sculpture also deliberately invokes pre-Columbian Mexican figures, like the Chaco Mule figure shown here on the left. The video didn't include this label for the movement that Mondrian led, but you need to know it. It's actually, I believe, pronounced De Stijl. I was a little surprised to find this image in this chapter. Note the date, but it's true that Calder's moving sculptures, or mobiles, were heavily influenced by Mondrian's painting and also by the early 20th century preoccupation with depicting movement and with depicting the relationship between time and space in this post-Einstein world. But De Stijl's greatest impact came in the field of architecture. This is a De Stijl house constructed in the Netherlands. Note the assemblage of geometric shapes. This is basically a Mondrian painting in 3D. Rietveld, that architect, also designed furniture for his open-plan house. Again, it looks like a furniture version of a Mondrian painting, doesn't it? The De Stijl emphasis on incorporating art into living environments was adopted and further developed by a famous architectural movement, another very popular College Board topic, movement of the 1920s, inaugurated by the Bauhaus school. It was founded by Walter Gropius. As always, I think architecture is more easily seen on video than a slide, so here is still another clip. And here are some of the images that you just saw in the video. This is a very famous house and again has shown up more than once on the AP exam. Gropius was succeeded by Mies van der Rohe, who moved the Bauhaus school to Berlin and further developed what came to be known as the international style. When the Nazis closed down the Bauhaus school, a hotbed of what Hitler called degenerate art, van der Rohe moved to Chicago and greatly influenced the direction of post-war American architecture. Many of the glass and steel boxes that define the American urban skyline were designed by, or even more often inspired by, Mies van der Rohe. But not everybody liked the stark, unembellished international style. Art Deco arose in response. A kind of marriage of Louis Sullivan's sleek form follows function architectural style, remember that, with the arts and crafts and Art Nouveau decorative impulses. I'll return to our video now, but let me make a confession first. I love Art Deco. It may have been retro, but I think it's actually worn better than the concrete, steel, and glass boxes it rebelled against. Postmodern architects mostly agree, by the way, as we'll see when we get to our final chapter. So the building you just saw in your video was Rockefeller Center, and we're going to get a peek inside in just a minute. But here is a close-up of the Art Deco spire of the Chrysler Building. You saw some organic sculpture. Frank Lloyd Wright was the master of organic architecture, that is, architecture designed to be closely integrated with the natural environment. Wright was a Chicago architect, and his low-slung buildings were designed to reflect the Midwest's Great Plains, hence the name they were given, the Prairie style. This is the Roby House, which is now on the campus of the University of Chicago. Like Gerrit Rietveld of the De Stijl School, Frank Lloyd Wright designed furniture to go with his houses. Here are stained glass windows he designed for the Roby House. You'll note the influence both of De Stijl and of Art Deco. This is probably Frank Lloyd Wright's most famous building, and it's a College Board favorite. It was designed to fit into its woodland setting. It's in Pennsylvania. The balconies were made of reinforced concrete, and they were cantilevered over the water. Cantilevered is a term you need to know, by the way. Unfortunately, Wright's design was not as architecturally sound as it was architecturally interesting. It cost $155,000 to build this house in 1939 and $11.5 million to restore it in 1994. The balconies were sagging and had to be lifted back in place with steel cables. This video uses computer-aided graphics to show how the house was constructed and how it seems to grow out of its environment. I thought it was cool. You're just seeing 1 minute of a 4-minute video clip, by the way, but you can see the rest on Moodle. Here's a Unitarian church that Wright designed in Oak Park, Illinois. It is shown up on a past AP test, so it'll be on your unit exam as well. Note the Frank Lloyd Wright style is so distinctive that you could easily get a question that included one of his buildings that you haven't seen, so recognize the style. And here's a glimpse of the interior. You'll see the similarity to the Roby House interior. We're going to leave Utopia behind now and move into the strange world of psychoanalysis, Sigmund Freud, and Salvador Dali.